Hi everyone, I'm Mims and welcome back to the channel. I love when people share the decks that they are planning to work with, and sometimes people do them monthly, sometimes people do them seasonally, etc. So I made a big old pile of decks that I want to work with, but I may not end up working with all of them, but I definitely feel like I've got kind of the things that I do want to play with and use this summer. And at least for me, I know solstice isn't until the end of, late June, but I still think about summer, like late May through very late August, maybe the beginning of September. And some of that has to do with like school year. I grew up and then went to college where we were always done with school like right up to Memorial Day, which is late May. And then usually either started back in late August or right back to school in early September. I've not been like a classroom teacher, but I am a teacher now, and my teaching changes in the summer too. I'm a year-round online teacher, but like my kiddos change, and so summer feels a little different, and things are changing kind of right in this moment. So I think I have 20, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 18. I have 20 decks. Now, that seems like a lot, but that's for the very end of May through June, July, August, and maybe even into the very beginning of September. Some of these are project-based and so forth. I'll talk a little bit about all of them, but I just thought that I would share the decks that I have, and I'm kind of sharing them by category, not so much like Oracle, Lenormand, whatever, but more like how I'm working with them. So I'm going to start with kind of the ones that I'm using on a daily, ongoing basis. Lenormand. I bought this deck, and I will list the decks below. They may not be in the order that I've shown them, but I will at least list the deck and all the details, publisher, creator, copyright, etc. Just so if there is something you want to find, it'll be listed below. And if there's an indie deck, I will include their website. Okay? So we'll start with Bluebird Lenormand. I bought this back in the late winter, spring of 2024 with the idea that I wanted to dive into Lenormand slowly. And it's been a slow working process, and I like it. What I've been doing is doing like a 3 to 5 card spread most days as a way to learn how to link them better together. And I really like working with it. I just have the one deck at this point, and maybe at some point I'll do like a Lenormand study. But for now, doing that daily 3 to 5 cards has been helpful because I feel like I'm getting a lot more, and instead of like working with it like on this intensive study, I've just been doing it daily, and now I'm at, I don't know, I've been over a year, and I feel like it's sinking in quite well. I also love it for that kind of frankness that Lenormand is sort of known for, and it definitely helps. I still often will read it with some daily cards with tarot, and then maybe match it up with some Oracle. But anyway, I'm going to keep working with the Bluebird Lenormand. I guess I could show you some cards. These are the backs. This was published, the version I have says 2017, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was maybe first published in 2006. I may be completely wrong about that, but for some reason that date sticks in my head. So that is just ongoing 3 to 5. Sometimes I do a 9 card box spread with Lenormand. And I definitely would like to get to the point where I, will read some, like a grand tableau. But for now, it just works as kind of that ongoing daily work mostly in that 3 to 5 cards. Or, like I said, occasionally that 9 card box spread. Another deck that I work with kind of daily, I have 2, and this summer I thought that I would work with the Biblical Tarot. I have the Biblical Tarot, and this was actually given to me by the creator. This is Biblical Tarot Shadows of the Soul, And I did a side-by-side, but I deleted all my old videos. So I may do another side-by-side just in case other people want to see it. But I am working, and it's for sure going to last the rest of this year, but I think it's going to last into next year. Just kind of an ongoing spiritual, religious, shadow, tarot, personal growth, study work. I don't know what else to call it. Anyway, this is the black and white version. The Biblical Tarot, they're on their second edition. I don't know when it was first published, but it's a color deck. Both were created by Krasimir Kalin. And this one, it's similar in that the figures in each of the cards is the same, but the image looks different because it's black and white in this case. And in some cases, it's kind of it's closer. And so I just thought for simplicity, for a while I was kind of working with both decks, but I just thought for summer, instead of going for color, I just thought I would work with the shadow deck. You can definitely use it for shadow work. I have a lot of shadows around this topic. But I also think if you just like black and white, it can also just be, I think the images are striking. Like, look how much dimension is there. I love that big starry night there. Anyway, so that is the Biblical Tarot Shadows of the Soul. Independently published. And on their website, like I said, I'll include their website and their Etsy shop where you can buy the deck. But this was a gift from the creator. Okay. Let's do these next two. These are decks, but they're DIY. And I'll talk about them for a minute. And I want to finish both of them by the end of the summer. And it doesn't feel too crazy. I am trying to be careful about not saying all these big crazy goals, because that's why I deleted a lot of my old videos, is I just felt like I was getting too caught up in making really ambitious, lofty goals and then feeling really hemmed in by that and feeling paralyzed and feeling like it's a pattern. But these I've been doing anyway. This is ongoing, and I have continued to do this. This kind of feels like continued personal work. These next two are DIY decks, and I have finished this. This is the Magical Tarot. This is a scratch-off deck. It's really cute, but I do not recommend it, and I will make a video when I'm actually finally done with it. But it has these, it's perforated sheets with, and per sheet, there's 4 cards. I'll show the cards. I'm basically done with the deck. I've done all the scratch-off. So it has scratch-off similar to like what, like a lottery card would, or like a scratch-off lottery ticket would be. I don't know if those are in other countries, but I know in the United States we have them. And it's all done, but I need to do a little bit of cleanup, and I need to get like an X-Acto knife. I don't know if that's a brand, but anyway, that, you know, like a little blade to kind of trim it up. I did not do the best. I trimmed it, and then I did corner rounding, but the corner rounding, as you can see, is not done the best. And then there is some sort of overlap where, because then I put what's it called, contact paper on the backs to give them a little bit of strength. So they already were, you know, cardboardy, or, you know, cardstock rather than just like thin paper. But I feel like I need to do a little bit of cleanup. And then when I do, so I would like to wrap this up. Like I said, it's percentage-wise probably 90% done, maybe even 95% done. But it just needs some, a little bit of, I don't know if I'm going to be able to clean up the corners any more than I already have messed them up. But at the very least, I definitely want to get rid of this little overlap with, you know, with where the contact paper kind of is on the edges. So I need to find some YouTube videos. If anyone has any suggestions, let me know. Because it's a really cute deck, but I do not recommend it. It was a pain in the butt. It's really hard to scratch off all of the stuff. But anyway, I want to finish this, and like I said, because I'm almost done, this feels like a good summer project to be done by the end of the summer. And then the next one is also a DIY deck, but I haven't started it yet. This is the Create Your Own Flower Tarot deck, and this feels like a summer project. It is, and I know there's several different versions of like a color in your own deck. I think this one's super cute. This is by Sahar Huneidi-Palmer. I should have said this other one. The Scratch Off deck is by Marenthe Otten, and it was published by Quarto Publishing. This one is Create Your Own Tarot deck, Flower Tarot deck. And so it's similar in that it's got these perforated cards, and it's kind of on the cardboardy end. I probably will end up doing the same thing, but I'm actually kind of glad that I'm getting to learn on this one, because this one, I want it to be, I would like them to be quite lovely. And so this is a flower deck. All 78 cards are in there, and they're designed to be cut out and colored, or not cut out because they're already perforated. My hesitancy in this deck is I hated coloring as a kid, and I never really understood the appeal of coloring, but I'm really interested in getting this deck like done so that it can be in my collection. And I also love this deck because it talks a lot about, it has really great images, and then kind of talks about color and some of that flower imagery. And I'm definitely interested in kind of working with that. And so this feels like a summer kind of project. As well, I've had it for a while, and I just would like to get it done. And I also thought this would be a good experiment, because I think by the time I'm done with this deck, I'll know whether or not I enjoy coloring. And maybe I'll enjoy coloring as an adult, and I'll be like, what was but I hated it as a kid. So we'll see. But there's 78 cards, you know, there's 100 and more days of summer. Surely I can get through it that way. And I can probably learn from this deck in terms of like, do I want to put the contact paper on it, how to edge it, etc. So those are two decks, but they're kind of project based. Trying to finish them so that they could just be tarot decks within my library. Okay, more project based decks. One is, and this is ongoing, this is the Jane Austen Tarot. And it wasn't until January that I realized that it was the 250th anniversary of Jane Austen's birth. And I often will reread Jane Austen, usually the main 6 books, the 6 that we think of as her canon. Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, Persuasion, Mansfield Park, and Northanger Abbey. And so I often read Jane Austen, and when I was first learning tarot, a couple of my books suggested, oh, by the way, isn't this a cool card? It's The World, and it's Jane Austen. So this is a deck that I want to use in my rereading of Jane Austen, coming back to one of my ways of learning tarot, which was rereading or using the cards to project, you know, to read for the characters. And so I've already made a video, which I will link below, about my deck in a book kind of, it's not a project. It's more just another dimension to my practice. And this one, though, is going to be not just for summer, but for the rest of the year. I also want to reread or read, I've read Lady Susan and Sandition, but I want to, or is that all? I forget. There's 6 other books, and I have a list, and I want to read all 12 Jane Austen works and use this deck. And this is going to be, my thought is that I'll probably read like a couple books per month, but this is going to be kind of an ongoing thing. So I'm using this deck. And again, it's the Jane Austen Tarot, no, not the, it's just Jane Austen Tarot, published by Bookshop Limited. And this one came out in 2024. Okay, related, and again, I'll link that video below, I wanted to, I'm doing what I'm calling a book and a deck. And I have, I'm counting the Jane Austen as sort of its own thing, but I picked 4 decks and 4 books for summer. My criteria was I wanted them to be books and decks that I already had, and decks that I was already going to be using for the summer, because I didn't want to have, I already have 20 decks out for the summer, which at one point that was my whole entire collection. So I've matched up books and decks, and I'm not going to talk about the books, but I will show you the decks. I've got the Neoteric Feminine Tarot. That matches up with a book called, yeah, I don't have the books nearby. But I wanted to work with this deck in addition, in that reading project. Specifically, I've matched this up with a book, but I also am planning to use this book for summer. So this is the Neoteric Feminine Tarot, published by Wyspell. Other decks that I'll be using ongoing, as well as linked to a book for book and a deck. I've got Little Bird Tarot by Shanna D. And I'm sure a lot of you know about this deck. I've talked about it a lot. I love it. This is, for one, I think these are the most beautiful backs in any deck that I have. And then it's just really lovely. It's artwork from John James Audubon, but she's done an amazing job of putting them together with the card meanings, and it's just a lovely deck. It's a great deck for summer anyway, but I'm also using it in the summer book and a deck project. I keep saying project, and then I just said I don't want it to be a project, but I have linked this up with a book, and I also want to use this anyway. Summer feels like a great time to think about birds, actually year round, but so that is Little Bird Tarot by Shanna D. Another deck that's just going to be an ongoing part of the summer, but also related to the books in a deck, is Terra del Fuego by Ricardo Cavolo, published by Fournier. This feels like summer. This is still pretty new to me. I got it in the spring. I'm interested definitely I've linked it with the book, but it's also just going to be one of those summer decks. And I'm repeating myself quite a bit. Okay. Last deck in the book and the deck pairings is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This was given to me by a friend a few years ago, and they are just great little kind of quote affirmation cards. The book came out in 1999. I still haven't read it yet, so that was one of the books that I'm going to read this summer and pair it with the deck. So then they have these themes on the back. I will sometimes just leave one of these up, like leaned up against my desk, or even if it's really poignant, I might put it, tuck it in the corner of the bathroom mirror. So yeah, this is Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, 52 inspiration cards. Okay, the rest of these are just summer decks, mostly. But I'm going to talk about these two together. The Botanicals deck. This is published by Chronicle Books. This is by Leah Moth. This is a beautiful deck. It definitely felt like a good one to work with for summer. These are the cards. The photography is by Jennifer Chong. Chang? Chong. And then they have on the back of them, they have like intentions and some herbalism sorts of things. I love this deck because you can use it if you're just like wanting to identify plants, but all this stuff is on the back, which is kind of a neat way of having this. I think of it kind of like an oracle deck. I want to use it this summer because there is a community garden just like right there, like as close as somebody's front lawn would be. And I have committed, I will move later this year, but I'm not moving in the summer. And so I have taken a garden plot and I'm planning to, well, I'm not going to plant cinnamon, but I am going to plant some flowers and some herbs. And I thought that this would be a good deck to work with, not only for that gardening, but also just, I kind of want to work with this energy. And it feels like it goes quite well with the Herb Crafters Tarot. Now, Herb Crafters probably could be more of like a fall, like what are you going to do with all those herbs? But I got this deck and I haven't worked with it much yet. So I just thought it would be a cool deck to not even really get to know it, but just to kind of play with herbal stuff. I'm definitely interested in like learning more herbalism and like maybe even at some point committing to coursework, but I'm not ready for that. But I still thought that this would be a good companion to both the botanicals deck as well as, you know, working with the garden. And so that is the Herb Crafters Tarot by Joanna Powell Colbert and written by Letitia Guthrie, published by US Games. And so kind of just gardening and you know, getting to know maybe some of these plants a bit better. Okay, the rest are just decks I want to get to know or play with more. And as part of that, I have picked a deck for each month to use for like daily draws and to kind of work through the guide, you know, to read through the guidebook. So for June, I have Adventure Tarot. So this is not so much like an in-depth dive or an in-depth deck study, but more like just one deck that I want to use for like daily cards and to read through the guidebook and to get to know it a bit better. So Adventure Tarot is going to be for June. This is by Elizabeth Sue. Artwork is by Jenny Chang. I got it in the spring with the inspiration of having more adventure in my life, as well as this deck is inspired or somewhat inspired by van life. And I would love to live in a van, at least for a bit. And so I just thought that this would be a great deck for early summer. So that's the one that like I said, I'm going to use for daily draws and, you know, reading through the guidebook a bit. And again, not necessarily like an in-depth deck study, but definitely in that, let's get to know you a bit better since you're fairly new in my collection. The next one, so that's June. July, I want to do Tarot of Hearts. This is also another one that I got springtime. This is by Isabel Hayes. This is published by, and all of the artwork is by her. This is published by US Games. And it has a thick guidebook. And this is, I already know this is like one of my kind of all-time decks. I just know that already. So I definitely wanted to get to know it better. And this has got to be one of the cutest details in a box, that cute little dog sleeping. These are the backs. And so this felt, these deep colors felt like a good summer deck to get to know. So this is going to be the daily card pull deck for July. And again, getting to know it, not necessarily a thick, or not, I don't know, thick, but it's not necessarily a deck study, but the one that I want to get to know at least a bit better for July. Tarot of Hearts by Isabel Hayes. And then for, let's get those back in there. Okay. For August, I'm kind of going the opposite of these bright colors and these kind of pastel colors. I'm going for black and white. This is another deck. All three of these decks were decks that I got in the spring, and they're all kind of what I've identified as favorites, so it feels like it's a good time to get to know it better. This is Heart and Hands Tarot by Liz Blackbird, published by US Games, 2021. And I thought after all the color, it might be kind of fun to have a black and white deck for daily draws in August. But again, some of these decks I might use in other, I'm not only going to use this in August. I will use it in the summer as well as those other two. But for sure, for the daily draws, it's going to be the one I'm using in August. And I love all these hands. I love the backs. It's just a beautiful new favorite. The rest of these decks are just not, they don't have a job assigned to them. They're just here. And I want to use them. And they feel like summer. Here's Vivid Spirit Tarot. The creator is listed as Vivid Spirit. This is published by Dark Cinevere, or Cinevere, not sure. This came out in 2021, I think. And it feels like a summer deck. It kind of feels like deep in the forest or even deep underwater. I know technically I think those are like trees and things, but it still sort of feels almost like it's its own underwater world. It's a beautiful deck, and it just feels like summer. So that's Vivid Spirit. And again, this might seem like a lot of decks, and it is, but I like having some choices, but still narrowing down my collection so that I'm not like digging through shelves or things. I kind of feel like I've narrowed it down to what I do want to play with and work with this summer. This next one, Tarot Landscapes. This is one of those decks that kind of feels like a year-round deck, not just because it's one of my favorites, but also because it sort of feels like there's, not sort of, it does. It has, like that feels like late summer, but there's some cards that feel like winter. This is by Francesca Mattioni. Artwork is by Yoshimari. And yeah, I got cards upside down, reversals. So that is Tarot Landscapes. And this was published by Vivida Books. Vivida. This came out in I'm pretty sure it's 2023. Okay, next. Other decks. Puppy Tarot. For comfort, for fun. This has no creator listed. As far as I can tell, I don't have a bootleg copy. It's just cute and sweet. And I love this small factor. It's even smaller than a Fournier deck. Where's the... Oh, I'm rattling the... I just wanted to give you a comparison. It's even smaller than a Fournier deck. And I love Fournier decks because they're small. I think I just have one or two at this point. Doesn't matter. But these are just cute, sweet little puppies. And this is kind of one of those like comfort decks. but it can still give me what I need. Sometimes the puppies have to bark, but when they do, I get it. That's Puppy Tarot. Another deck. This one is also new, like really new, like May. And I'm not doing it like I'm doing these others where it's probably somewhere in between just like daily draws and like getting to know it. Whereas I'm just gonna play with this one. This is the Cowgirl Tarot. I don't know if this is a cow or a dog or a little bit of both, but she's cute and funny, and it's Marseille style. This is made by Isa Benison, Gold Gentle Thrills. This is an indie deck at a mass market price. She's a cow there, but this was actually inspired by the artist's dog named Cowgirl. She's cute and sweet and funny. I will link to my unboxing of this deck because then you can see all the cards. And I hadn't seen anyone talk about it yet. She also made the Gentle Thrills Tarot that was an indie deck and that was then picked up by Hay House as a mass market. So again, I just am reaching for this. It feels kind of like summer, and then also because it's new to me, it feels like a fun deck to just play with and not have a job. You know, I'm not trying to get to know it. It's not linked with a book. It's just, I am getting to know it, but not in any like deck study way. So again, Cowgirl Tarot by Gentle Thrills, Isa Benison. This is a perennial deck for me, the Outlaw Tarot, or Outlaw Oracle by Hilary Banks Self. This is going to be one of those decks that I use always. It's now on its second edition, and I'm pretty sure, I know at least a couple of the cards are different, and I'm pretty sure this is one of the ones that's different. I love the photography. I love the creativity. I would love to be friends with the creator. And this feels like home to me. I grew up in the Western United States, and this deck has, and I also love photography, so, and I love outlaw country music, so this deck just speaks to me in many ways, and I recognize a lot of these, you know, landscapes and things. So that's the Outlaw Oracle. I don't have a ton of oracles for this summer. I guess I have the Botanicals deck. Yeah, and then otherwise I'm mostly working with tarot. Oh, last one is another oracle. I knew, I was like, I thought there was one more. So I've got one Lenormand and then 3 oracle. The other oracle is a Botanicals deck, but this one is the Literary Witches Oracle. This came out in 2019, based on the book that came out in 2017. This is by Taisia Kitayskaya. I need to work on pronunciations. And then illustrated by Katie Horan, published by Clarkson Potter. So this kind of has a little bit of a job. I use it sometimes for inspiration for reading, although I feel like I've got quite a bit of reading to do with Jane Austen and some of these others. But I love these literary witches, and then it has, so it's also good inspiration for like creative writing stuff. So it has, the witches are the authors, and there's 50 of those, and then there are 20 cards that are these, I'll show you some examples, that are those witches materials. So you can almost use this like 2 separate decks. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll try to draw, I'll draw the cards, like a card from the witches and then a card from the materials, and kind of link those together. But it's a beautiful deck. And yeah. So this is more like, it doesn't really have a job, but I do sometimes use it as inspiration in terms of writing and reading. So Literary Witches Oracle. Okay, that's it. So we've got a lot of decks, but I feel pretty good that I'm not really going to be reaching into my tarot cabinet shelves. I feel like what I've got out here will give me lots of things to play with and have fun with. And that really, for me, is what I'm trying to do this summer, is to have fun, have a few goals, but make it, you know, not make it impossible. And only to share, you know, if I've really completed something. I know I have kind of talked about like, oh, I'm going to get to know this deck, but I tend to do that. I tend to pick a deck that I sort of work with on a monthly basis, you know, getting to know the guidebook more, getting to know the decks more. And I just don't always talk about that. So that's it. Anyway, what are your decks for the summer? Do you pick them out seasonally? Do you have it more of on a monthly basis? Or do you just reach for whatever is in your cabinet and your shelves? Let me know. Thanks for being here. I hope you're well. I hope you're taking care of yourself and finding joy and finding ways to take care of others. And I hope to see you in another video. Take care.